All right, gents, thank you for joining me today. Just to sort of introduce myself to begin with, my name's Nicholas Hugh. I'm the growth manager with Descartes Peoplevox, looking after the Asia Pacific region. I'm very lucky today. I'm joined by two probably big personalities in the ecom community, and look, two very intelligent guys when it comes to logistics. Okay, so we've got Danny Hancock, who's the Global Ops Manager with Lorna Jane. He's been with the team over there since 2013, I believe. And also
Yep.
Hack and Steel from the Starshipit crew. He's been with them since 2016 and currently looking after partnerships and sales. All right, Danny, I'll hand it over to you, mate. You want to tell us a little bit more about what you do?
No, so I manage most things operational here at Lorna Jane, obviously specifically around the distribution, the stock, the logistics side of the business. So yeah, it's been a long journey here, a lot of growth, a lot of different aspects. It's forever changing and evolving as we go into different markets. So yeah, I do a lot of different things here, but predominantly, yeah, this the logistics part and the supply chain part is where my world is.
Never a dull day, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And Hacken, also known as Hawk, tell us a bit more about you, mate.
Yeah, that's right. Call me Hawk. Yeah, so channel partner manager here at Starshipit. I've been here, I think, about almost 6 years, and I have been working, well, certainly early on, I was very close to the Lorna Jane implementation, and sort of been really enjoying following how it's evolved around, international ship from store, other carriers, and that sort of stuff. So, yeah, fully looking forward to sort of this conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I think we were just joking before, saying that we've all sort of, three of us have got a background in logistics, and bringing that all together is sure to get add some valuable insights. I think on this call. So let's start with addressing Lorna Jane. It's I think of them as one of the most recognized Aussie brands these days. Like, they've just gone from strength to strength. It doesn't seem like you guys have done too much wrong in the journey to get to the point where you're at. Could you tell us just, I guess, a little bit more about how the business started, and anything most people maybe don't know about the brand?
It's a good little Aussie story, I guess. There was a dental assistant / yoga instructor in Cairns and fell in love with a butcher named Bill. And Lorna didn't obviously love what was available in the market from an activewear space, and started making her own. And it hit the sweet spot and went from there, and became a staple of the Aussie landscape in the activewear world. And then now merging into the global market. Not merging, it's quite strong in many markets. China is probably one of our biggest growth markets at the moment. New Zealand is going from strength to strength to strength. So it's really finding a sweet spot in that women's activewear game.
Yeah, it's really becoming that like household brand or household logo. And I'm sure there's not just in our own backyard, but all over the world now. You've got women of all ages and all different stages of life with that logo, with those wearing those leggings and rocking that apparel. So it's really cool, really, really cool. So I suppose every sort of growth of a business, there's peaks and troughs. What are some of the more exciting moments that you've sort of seen with Lorna Jane over the last few years?
Well, for me personally, in the logistics space, I guess, was the implementation of our China DC. Actually getting that off the ground, operational, it really solidified the whole model and gave us a really good central point to, probably the most advanced thing we did is put a direct-to-store model in. So all of our store stock gets allocated and picked and packed in that facility. And goes direct to store. So we don't see it in any of our domestic warehouses. But it really changed the game for our distribution landscape, and then allowed our local in-market facilities to really focus on that direct-to-consumer e-com fulfillment. So it allowed us to really focus in what each part was doing. But getting that off the ground was a huge effort. And then I guess the last 12 months we're kind of implementing the warehouse management system in Peoplevox, and then obviously our order management system, and really bringing that omni-channel piece together. They were probably the two key highlights for me, and the two great growth components of what we did. It's always a hard obstacle of trying to get the right architecture of it all, physically and system-wise, and getting that right balance was probably the hardest challenge, but has really found its legs in the last sort of 12 months.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, I mean, it's really a game changer. Once you can start to get different departments or different aspects within the whole supply chain operation to become hyper focused on what makes the most sense for them, then you just, yeah, you're sort of just bursting through the ceiling, right? So I suppose with what you've just said there, did you run into, I'm sure you did, but what would you call out as sort of like the key obstacles or challenges that you faced along that trajectory?
Oh, I guess it's location. It's getting all the physical locations right, and knowing where's the best place to put them around the world. Obviously, dealing with different countries, setting up a facility in somewhere like China is always challenging, and getting the right balance of all that right, and getting all the right partners and players within that model to make it happen. And I guess it's landing on the right system solutions as well, and knowing what's going to be the best thing for us long term, as well as solve immediate challenges. So.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. You can't have you need to address the short-term issues or current immediate issues, but you can't have a short-term view when you're deploying anything, right? It needs to be able to scale with the business. And I suppose that leads me to my next point. What does the current technology stack look like in terms of, your structure from, your customer-facing e-com through to how you're handling your warehouse, how you're handling your dispatch solution, and anything in between?
Oh, look, I like to try and keep things as simple as possible, and I'm not the only person in the decision-making process of all that here. I guess our sales team, they operate on a Salesforce platform. Then that's backed up with our Commistry, OMS, and PIM, which we've had PIM for a while. OMS, the OMS component was something we implemented last year as well, alongside, then we went with Peoplevox, obviously as our overall warehouse solution that runs our global network. So we operate that in all of our countries. And then obviously for that, a global solution in Starshipit to obviously make it simplified from a global shipping perspective, and then spread out through our store network as well. So I'm always one to try, and you need in this SaaS-based world a little bit of a multi-stack solution, but you don't want a patchwork quilt either. So it's trying to get the right harmony and right balance with the right players to make it all come together.
Completely agree. In the modern world, the modular technology stack, trying to get the best of breed in each space makes the most sense for flexibility and being able to be agile as you grow. So I can definitely understand that. So I guess, factoring in, the need for each and every one of those solutions, what was sort of the main considerations, would you say? If it was there a consistent need for each, regardless of the solution you're going for? Was the consistent need across the whole spread, like, being applicable in overseas markets and things like that? Or was it, is it really, really different for each and every time you were looking to implement a new system?
No, it was all fairly similar. Like, obviously there's the usual, is it scalable? Is it going to see us through, a numerous years of growth? I don't want to be doing, major projects and updating system stacks every 5 minutes. Is it going to be a global solution? That was ultimately for me. Can it work in all the markets we're in? Can it functionally operate, translate, do what it needs to do? But ultimately, I love to find partners and strategic partners in this that, that can work together and grow together. Like I want to have partners that are constantly challenging and evolving their own systems. So I get the best out of what the one thing we know about e-com is that it's consistently changing and evolving. So you don't want an archaic partner that's going to think they've got the perfect stack and sit there and do nothing with it. You want constant evolution, because that's where we want constant evolution, and together we can achieve that. So that for me is more, the most important part is partners that you can pick up the phone and talk to and work together and create, some pretty brilliant things.
Yeah, I can definitely resonate with what you're saying, because we had multiple conversations over the last couple of years since we originally met, and we shared that sort of mindset of needing to be innovative, needing to be agile and change things on the fly and grow the businesses. Your business is growing. Why shouldn't your vendors, your tech partners, right? So I definitely see it's aligning and sharing that belief and having a long-term vision, because as you said, you know, if there's someone that doesn't resonate with that view of wanting to change and challenge over time, then, you know, you're going to fall by the wayside. I suppose, you know, that leads me into if we get hyper focused on shipping for a moment, right? And there's probably no one better outside of yourself, Danny, than a guy that's, you know, been around. He's worked with freight forward. He's worked with shipping lines. He's got a breadth of experience in this space. So I might hand over to Hawk now to just run through some questions around shipping.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Nick. So I guess there's a couple of different areas I want to sort of touch on. First one would be around sort of international shipping and how that's all going, but also I want to touch a little bit about your ship from store model. I guess maybe just to start with, I'm going to ask the question that's on everybody's lips, probably most probably Nick's for sure. Is Lorna Jane? Do you see a time in the future when Lorna Jane might do menswear?
No, it'll never will. I think it knows its place. It knows what it does well, and it knows that it doesn't need to dance in that space. So, as far as I'm aware, yeah, no.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, never mind. I'll ask again another time. I keep chipping away. Anyway, so look, congratulations. I thoroughly enjoyed sort of watching this journey, and I think you know, you guys are popular around the globe. There's no question. I think, you know, from my experience, you know, you guys are pretty much around sort of the trailblazers in this activewear sort of, you know, trend, I guess. The mums, you know, going to the school pickup and stuff, and they're at Lorna Jane, and it's awesome. So, but as far as, you know, shipping internationally goes, would you be able to sort of talk us through, you know, your global distribution network and what that looks like, you know, where your DCs are, and any particular markets that you're serving?
So yeah, we have obviously the China DC. Then that obviously is the aggregation point of all of our, you know, our vendors come into that. You know, all the stock gets consolidated and cut out from there. We service a lot of our strategic partner wholesale customers directly out of there. You know, all around the world in different countries. That then fulfills all of our local countries. So obviously we have a DC in Brisbane, Australia, one in Auckland, New Zealand, and then one in LA. In Gardena. We just moved to that location there and expanded. So the 3 domestic warehouses, and then we have all of our store network. So obviously out of that China DC, all of our stores come direct out of that. We have 3 stores in Singapore that get fulfilled directly out of the China DC. So it simplifies that store model. And then out of our local DCs, that's where, you know, obviously the US is America and South America. New Zealand is just New Zealand, and then Australia takes up the lion's share of it. We did have a 3PL up in the UK, but opted just with the craziness of Brexit, if I can put that politely in calling it crazy. It made it just challenging. We restructured our model there for a moment, and that's the one thing I never stick to whatever my model is. I'll always constantly evolve, and we'll go back at some point, but right now it's not the right decision being there. So we brought that fulfillment back out of Australia. You know, and our Australian business obviously services the Australian market. It does all of Southeast Asia, all the UK, EU, and then every other random country kind of thing. It's easier to fulfill from here, being our primary fulfilling DC. So it's kind of our global footprint.
Yeah, so yeah, the UK Brexit part. I mean, I remember there being a lot of headaches. You certainly weren't the only ones sort of experiencing that side of things. It must have been a really trying time, really trying. Yeah, and so as far as, can you give us sort of any examples of the challenges around when you well, with international shipping, of course, we talked about Brexit, but any sort of major problems or learnings that you took from the early days around, you know, global shipping?
I guess, like from creating that architecture, it was really trying to look at the science of your tipping point. For me, it was, when is it the right time to move? So everything, you know, for years ago, we were just all into the Brisbane DC and all out of the Brisbane DC, no matter where we went around the world. And obviously through strategic points in time, we looked at, I understood the cost model. I understood down to my unit pick and pack cost, my order pick and pack cost. I knew exactly what it cost to land the goods, all of the duties and taxes and so forth around it. So it was about measuring it based on what the business strategic growth was. And it was like, well, if this was the market we were going to go after, okay, well, at what point is the tipping point better to be in market versus being out of market? And that was probably some of the biggest challenges, but the science in working that out, because I'm a big believer of, if you really want to ignite an e-com program and with a backup a website, if you're servicing America, you want to be in America. You want to you want to have stock on the ground. You want to be able to get it to your customer as quick as possible. You want to be able to have returns nice and simple. You need to be able to give that experience, and you won't get that experience if you're shipping from the bottom of the world. But at the same time, if you go too early, you're going to blow a lot of money. You're not going to be, you're going to take a lot of money away from other areas like the marketing spend and different things, because your distribution costs, are going to be far too high to get into a market too early, and you don't get that right amortization of your orders. So it's working that out, spending time with the finance department, crunching the numbers and making sure that, okay, well, when we hit this point, we start looking for a lease, we start building the blocks, and then we go, okay, by this number, we want to be on the ground and we want to be operational. And it's that sweet spot, because it can be just as detrimental too early as it can be. And if you go too late, you're just missing out on growth. So
yeah, sure. Okay, it's a really fine balance, I suppose, and just being really close to those numbers.
Yeah.
A lot of homework went into that, I'm sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because returns are a big challenge. Obviously taxes and duties around the world, how to circumnavigate that wonderful web, and who doesn't like who, and who's changing what, and it's a forever game to play. But if you can get it right, there's a lot of margin to be held within the business by not giving it away. So
yeah, sure. Okay. The other question I was going to ask you as well, and I guess this is relevant for domestic as well, but you're using a bit of a suite of carriers. I mean, I know you've got the likes of Australia Post and DHL Express that you're using quite heavily, but there's a few others as well. I mean, can you help us understand sort of your reasoning, and how having offering different options, or having the availability of different options is useful for your audience?
You've got to. Well, for me, it was about choice to the customer. It's always about the customer. They always got to come first. And, some customers are happy to pay and they want it fast. Some customers don't want to pay and they're happy for it to be slow. You need to be able to give the time offering to the customer and the service offering to the customer, who I choose to carry that freight. I guess that's why I like Starshipit, that I have that choice. I have that power that I can then, if a carrier is not performing and somebody else is performing, I can really manipulate that, so I can at least maintain the service level I put forward to the customer. Because if we say it's going to be a day or 2 days or 5 days, I want to hold to that. So, and we all know in the freight game there's lots of challenges out there, and COVID has really taught us a lot of that over the last couple of years, that some fall off the perch and then they come back 6 months later and they're back on the lead lap, and it's an interesting game to play. But I guess trying to have a wide array of providers gives me flexibility to keep the customer service high to the.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and look, I mean, as far as international shipping goes, do you have any sort of advice around, for growing brands that are looking to enter other markets? Is there anything specific that you would say, if you had to sort of sum up a bit of it for them?
It's understanding the taxes and duty component. It's really getting a hold on that, knowing what costs you're going to be up for, and who's paying that, and what choice you want to make in that. Sometimes, quite often we pay that because we understand that that's a part of doing business, and we factor that into our cost base. But, I guess it's getting a handle on that. It's working with a partner like yourself to make paperwork easier. Paperwork can always be the problem, but if you get the right, a simple solution and the right partners in the whole thing, shipping internationally and shipping domestically doesn't really change too much. It goes in that cage or it goes in the other cage. Effective. If you get your model right, it shouldn't be that different.
I see. No. Yeah, and I'd fully agree to that. I mean, I think the setup initially is where a lot of the work is done, and then it should be a matter of sort of set and forget. But again, staying on top of it and having the right partners in play.
Yeah.
So the other big thing that I want to speak to you about as well is the ship from store model, because I know, you know, I think it was back about June last year, was it? You started off a project that saw about 100 of your stores, 100 or so of your stores, sort of fulfilling orders. So can you tell us a little bit about what sort of drove that decision to do that?
Well, obviously, we'd been doing it for a while, quite a few years in our own version of our order management system that we created in-house. It wasn't the most cost-effective solution. It did what it needed to do. It was a bit of a proof of concept in some ways, but I guess systemizing that and bringing it all together, you know, it really just advanced the revenue contribution that it gave to the business. For us, it was about igniting our stock pool. So instead of having just, like, whenever you fragment stock and place it into multiple locations, you, in a traditional sense, you remove your opportunity to make money. You know, from an omni-channel component. So, you know, you'll only get the eyes that walk across the lease line in that retail store, but by unifying our stores into our e-com platform, effectively, there was never a unit. There is literally never a unit of stock within the Lorna Jane business that's not on the website for sale, but not available for a customer to cross the lease line and purchase as well. So, it was trying to never miss a sale, give the customer the most opportunity to buy what they wanted to buy, but also for us, drive sell-through. We wanted to keep making sure that we sold down to every last unit in every corner of the business, and obviously trying to do it in the most simplified manner and the most systemized way. So
yeah, okay, yeah, because that sort of leads into my next question around the implementation as well. So, you know, I imagine, I mean, that's another scale, and you obviously had a taste of it earlier on around ship from store, but doing it in a sort of a more formal way. Were there any sort of real main challenges that sort of came up that you didn't see coming? Like the one that springs to mind, I mean, is like staff training. That always sort of freaks me out when it comes to ship from store, that sort of thing. Was that an issue, or is there anything else?
Yeah, no, like, I guess it's rolling out like any training package, but once again, it's finding the right solutions that are simple for people to pick up and use, that you don't want it complicated. You want a quick and obvious one-click solution. You know, for us, we didn't have, give them the easy road beforehand. They were using Australia Post bags, hand writing them. So having this nice printer on their desk and you know, a label just prints out automatically was a dream for them. So we were trying to create a lot more operational efficiencies in the store, that if we wanted to channel more orders going that way, we had to make it more seamless and a faster process for them. And by having then, you know, the Starshipit, you know, parent-child relationship that we created with all of our store network in our warehouse, it just simplified the model, made it easy, made it transparent. You didn't have someone writing an address wrong. You know, it made it very easy. So
yeah, okay,
yeah,
perfect. I mean, that sort of answers my next question as well, around sort of the main benefits of that ship from store model. You know, having it, you know, making it easy for the customer, but you also sort of talked about you know, not missing a sale and you know, making most of that revenue as well.
Well, it's exactly that. It was to increase sales, you know, improve customer experience, and reduce cost reduction. It was a win-win-win for all of us, kind of thing. So everyone got a better service, and we got a better operating business out of it.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. And I guess just a couple more questions, just generic ones around, you know, Starship, but I suppose around and I guess summarizing some of the benefits that you've experienced around, you know, since implementing, you know, Starshipit as a solution. You know, you talked about the multi-carrier thing and keeping certain carriers honest with different things. Is there anything that you can sort of summarize those types of benefits?
It was a global solution for us. I've got one shipping platform that I use across the globe now. I got one platform I can see all my orders in. I can, you know, track any order from it. You know, all of my teams are all using the same platform, so training becomes easy because it's one platform we're pushing out there. It's a simple, cost-effective solution because it's a global solution for me. So that was where, you know, you were chosen in that. So
I see. Perfect. Awesome. Hey, really appreciate that, Danny. That's been super helpful. I'll pass it back over to Nick, who can you can sort of take us through the Peoplevox aspect.
Thanks, Hawk. I suppose we're going to take it back a step, because before we can worry about shipping from DCs or shipping from store, we need to actually be receiving or getting our goods into those DCs, right, to begin with. And you've got a pretty large operation around the world, quite a few DCs to manage. And I suppose, you know, a big component of any ambitious online brand is picking and packing orders in an efficient manner, right? And trying to be as streamlined with that within that operation. Okay, so I suppose can I talk to you? You know, as you said before, you selected Peoplevox warehouse management solution to handle the DCs. Can you talk us a bit more about your use of the system?
It's a full end-to-end. It runs our whole operations in all of our domestic DCs. You know, for me, I needed a digital solution. I had a very basic, you know, old school analog kind of system in lots of ways, and I needed to digitize it and bring it into the right century. I wanted, you know, for me, I'm extremely about productivity. You know, and that's where I really needed a system that would drive that and enable me to measure that in every aspect. So every part from the inbounding side, my inbounding is phenomenal now. Like it was, it's streamlined. It drives accuracy. I guess for me, I needed a system that held accountability, you know, gave productivity, but drove accountability as well. You know, having multiple DCs and large teams, you know, sometimes sitting in one country of the world, you want to make sure that everyone's doing the right thing, and I needed a system that gave me that visibility over the whole thing. So that was a part of my selection of Peoplevox. Our DCs are driven to be pure e-com fulfillment centers predominantly. Yes, we do service some wholesale customers out of here. Yes, we have a store replenishment model out of our local DCs to our stores as well. So if we don't get that global allocation perfect, we can top up and do that. And Peoplevox did all those things, but predominantly I was after, you know, the racehorse of an e-com system. So, and that's what it delivered. So,
yeah, brilliant. I think it's interesting there. You said, you know, I mean, unfortunately, in the e-com world, there's so much of a focus on getting the traffic, getting in front of customers, getting impressions and securing sales, converting sales. And, you know, unfortunately, and we see, because we're on the back end of it, that there's the fulfillment of those orders can sometimes be an afterthought. And this is not just the case with the smaller players, but also the Lorna Janes of the world, right? Like you can grow so aggressively, so quickly, and the systems or systems and processes, I should say, don't always keep up with that. So I suppose, you know, as you said, you know, Peoplevox does stand out as sort of the best of breed in that space for digitizing the fulfillment process, and obviously handling, you know, more and more volumes as you grow. So, you know, we talked through those challenges that you faced, you know, being reliant on paper, you know, delays in fulfilling orders, and, you know, being able to allocate inventory correctly across your global distribution centers. I suppose, you know, how has the WNF supported, like, since you put in this warehouse system, how has it supported your growth?
Well, for me, like, we got a 35% productivity improvement out of our picking. So that alone, like, is phenomenal. Like that optimization of the picking routes, you know, and how, so, you know, it went from people walking 15 aisles, now they're walking 2 or 3, and they're picking their 12 orders in those 2 or 3 aisles. So just the simplicity of it, and that algorithms that sit within it, it allowed, you know, an efficient operating. So all of this productivity improvement, like, you know, honestly, especially in Queensland up here, the last sort of few months has been probably our most severe lockdown and COVID impacted times. It allowed me not to miss a beat. So we didn't have orders not going out within our delivery promise and time frame. We never had these restraints because of the productivity improvement. I didn't need as many people necessarily to operate our warehouses. It allowed me, I could spread the team out even further, and it gave transparency within it, where everybody was at. So the communication between the A shift and the B shift became simplified because of the system. So it's allowed me to get through, you know, the last 6 months very well. You know, it's our New Zealand warehouse is just growing exponentially. So it allowed me to scale up pretty quickly there. We just, you know, add in some more scanners and turn on a couple of more licenses, and away we go. And we're humming. It really doesn't change, bringing new team on. So I implemented through, we implemented all the DCs through COVID. So we did the implementation remotely. John Peters, my logistics manager, and myself into America and New Zealand. So the ease of the operating of the system, we could do that remotely. Like that was 2 major implementations in 2 major DCs. So it's I found it very user-friendly and easy. I'm the good judge of that. If I can use it well, it's easy for everyone else to use. So, so we can bring on a team member within 10 minutes. They're up and picking it at a reasonable pace. So the inbounding, like the guys just keep finding more and more features and ways to utilize the system to create better processes. So it's allowed me to get through a pretty challenging time with COVID and different things. And I know that I'll be safe into the future. I know that I'm gonna, we could double in size quite easy and still be very, very sound within the system. So it's good.
Brilliant. I mean, if we remove the whole idea of digitizing the process, which obviously we know the benefits about, getting off paper reliance and moving to the digital process. But if we just talk about, labor and staffing, you said yourself, you're able to have a system to track accountability. You're able to have a system to track productivity for each staff member. It's not just airy-fairy wondering, who's getting through what and, how many tasks are being completed throughout the day. You've got a snapshot as the operator of the business to be able to look into everyone's daily activity, which is awesome. And it also gives you that actionable insights on, do we need this many staff numbers? Because I think that a lot of the issue that growing brands face is that they just keep throwing more and more people into the operation, trying to address those growing pains. That's not scalable, nor is it cost effective. So, by having a system like this, you gain, the facts behind the operation to actually streamline it a lot better. So, you touched on getting new people onto the system and being able to train them up, within 10 minutes. I'd say, when we're heading into peak periods, specifically, the Black Friday, Cyber Monday week or weekend, that the ability to train new staff and get them actually picking orders or packing orders or receiving goods is phenomenally important. So, talk us through like how you looked last Black Friday in comparison maybe to the Black Friday before. Got any insane stats to throw at us?
Look, we had some pretty significant growth within those periods. It honestly, we sat back and we felt weird because I remember vividly previous Black Fridays, everyone was walking out of the warehouse just a wreck, like sweaty messes. We were just all like exhausted. I literally was running around the office going, "Hey, who's got an hour? Let's get out in the warehouse. Let's pick some orders."
Yeah,
we managed it all ourselves within our own department, our own teams, and it kind of felt odd because we were like, I was even second guessing the numbers at some point. I'm like, are we even ahead on target or what are we doing here? I'm like, we're massively ahead, but we just didn't, the productivity and the operation, it was a breeze this year. Honestly, it was an absolute pleasure. So it was a good time that the fruits of all the work that we did really did pay off in the busiest time. Like we cruised through pretty much, but pumped out significant amounts more. So it was good.
No one says that. That's incredible. Like we just cruised through. That's awesome. That's volumes.
Yeah, it was busy. It was busy, but it was like we'd all had the nightmares of previous years, and this year it was kind of fun. We had the stereo blaring and having a good time. So. Yeah.
Wow. So instead of it being a daunting impending event, it becomes something that you're really looking forward to, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's very, very cool. Okay. Look, that's sort of everything that I wanted to ask. Obviously I want to thank you, Danny, for sharing all of those insights about, from such a well-known brand now, Lorna Jane, like really impressive what you guys have accomplished in the last few years. And I know there's only more exciting things on the horizon for you guys. And Hawk, look, thanks for joining us and helping us to sort of get that holistic global logistics or going global sort of concept behind, from a large well-known brand and, actionable insights that I think anyone can learn from with their go-to-market strategies overseas.
Yeah.
Can I just say as well how much I fully appreciate, I know I've said this before, how I fully appreciate that surfboard in the background.
Oh, thank you. It was our marketing prop.
I love it. Yeah, you did well. It's great. Great.
So, no, thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Really
All right,
appreciate
guys, I'm
it.
going to stop the recording now. And